Hello everyone and welcome to Bright Green's series of interviews with the candidates that are standing in this year's Green Party executive elections. Before we get going with tonight's interview, I just have a quick message for you, which is that if you're new to Bright Green, please do scroll down and hit that subscribe button. It means that you won't miss any of the interviews that we're putting out in the future with the other candidates, as well as all of the videos that we put out in the coming days, weeks, and months. It doesn't cost you a penny. You won't miss out on anything that we do, and it really helps us a bunch as well. So without further ado, we're going to be going straight into the interview, and I'm delighted to be joined by one of the candidates for the publications coordinator role this evening. And it's a job share ticket of Rachel Collinson and Kathryn Bristow. So Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm really well, thank you. Excited to be here. Thank you for hosting us.
Brilliant. And I'm also joined by Kathryn Bristow. Kathryn, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Again, very happy to be here and looking forward to the interview.
Brilliant. So I'm going to fire my first question straight at you. Hopefully it's the most straightforward one you'll have to answer. Plain and simply, why are you standing to be the Green Party's next publications coordinator?
I'm happy to take this one, but if you've got anything to add, Kat, then fire away. So at the moment, the Green Party spends over £20,000 a year on a website called Green World that is supposed to retain members, but nobody knows, unfortunately, how many members it actually retains, and it has no strategy for retention. And so I've been a digital strategist in the nonprofit sector for over 20 years, and I thought, well, that's a good opening where I could put my skills to good use. And I think, as well as that, together, myself and Kathryn, we've heard from a series of people who've attended GPEX meetings and have left those meetings in total shock and saying they didn't know Greens would act like that. And the culture, both of us feel that the culture on GPEX feels like it needs a bit of a reset with fresh ideas and new people to kind of get back to being more green and more, consensus-based decision making and less chaos.
Kathryn, is there anything you wanted to jump in and add on that?
I've noticed a lot of organisational disarray in the party since I've been kind of involved in the National Party, and I think it does need we do kind of need a new way of kind of thinking about things and how we go about doing things in the party. So I'm running for publications to kind of address some of those issues in GPEX and also get Greenwald to be kind of a voice for all our members to show the achievements of all of our members in the party as well.
Brilliant, thanks both. So you've both touched a little bit there on some of the sort of wider issues you see there being on the executive and in the party centrally. We're going to park those for a moment, if that's okay, and come back to those in a little bit. And I wanted to hone down on Green World for a little while, because that's kind of pretty central to the publications coordinator role. And so I wondered if either or both of you could reflect a little bit on what you think the strengths and weaknesses of Green World are as a publication right now, and how you could see yourselves improving it.
I don't mind taking this one, Kat, if you're all right with that. So I think the strengths are that it has a natural readership base that it can reach out to, and so many publications struggle for readership numbers, and Green World doesn't need to do that. I think that it at the moment it possibly is struggling for traffic, but it shouldn't need to. And I think also, we've got a long history of being a lot of talented people working on it. I know that the incumbent has done a tremendous amount of hard work on Green World, and the Green World editorial board as well, putting out lots of content onto it. And there's, the volume of content that's on it is incredible. But I think it does suffer from being judged by, or the contract that that runs Green with Resource Media, the company that run the website. That contract is the aim of that contract is the amount of content that goes onto it, and it's not looking at quality. So I think the opportunities are to really make it more exciting to read, and for it not just to be journalism. So if a leading Green figure can't get an article in the Guardian, they just dump it onto Green World. And I think we could be much more strategic than that, and much more interesting and exciting. And there's so many brilliant publications out there, Bright Green in particular, that do their job so well. And Green World really needs to find out what is its niche. And I think the niche is in retaining members, not necessarily holding the party to account, which I think Bright Green does really well. And more people should subscribe to the YouTube channel and sign up for email updates to Bright Green. But with Green World, it's a place for members to talk to each other, but also really for members to be inspired by all the amazing achievements that Green Party councillors and our elected representatives, and those who are unelected as well. Hi, Jenny Jones and Leslie Bennett. But all those all those achievements, they need a platform. And I think there's also lots of voices within the party that really need to be heard. And we've got this, amazing diversity of people in the party that's just not being represented within Green World. And you look at the homepage today, and it's, it looks very middle class and very white, and it would be great to change that. And just delve in and look and see what's actually going on with this. And if we could start from scratch again with that budget, what would we actually do to improve membership retention? What would we write? What would we create? Would it be in a YouTube channel instead? We don't know yet. We need to look at that, go back to have a root and branch review, and figure out what is the job that Green World is there for, and how can it do that. So in a crowded media space, it's important for it to know what its unique capabilities are, really, and also the fact that there's some work being duplicated by Green Party staff with the Green Living Room, and so that's a bit uncomfortable and awkward, and we need to figure out how we can do this without duplicating work. And maybe there's some stuff we could do if we make financial savings. Maybe we could improve the Green Party internal spaces website, which is the job of that is to help retain members as well. And it's so everyone goes on about how they can't find stuff on Green Spaces, and it's very unfriendly and unwelcoming. And so there's all kinds of exciting things that we can do with that budget, bearing in mind the constraints that the party has, and most of the time spent on Green World, apart from what Resource Media does, is from volunteers. And it's so easy to get burned out. And so, we need to have an eye on that as well.
Thanks, Rachel. And Kathryn, do feel free to jump in a second if there's things that you want to add on that. I just wanted to pick up on one of those points that you've kind of raised there, which is, I guess, many members might not know, but Green World is, as kind of Rachel described there, currently managed externally. So it's essentially the management of the publication has been outsourced, and you put a figure on it there of £20,000. Presumably that's an annual figure. So I wondered whether you had any thoughts on that. You've talked about the nature of that contract, but do you have any views in relation to whether you think that Greenhouse should be in-house or whether it should be outsourced as it currently is? And Kathryn, feel free to jump in first, or Rachel, whichever one of you wants to take it.
I think I can take it briefly if you, yeah. I don't think it's a question of being in-house or out-house. I think it's more of a question of what resources and what value we can add to the publication. So I think I don't want to rule out that we stay with the contract with Resource Media. Like, I think everything's on the table initially, but we need to kind of take a review of everything that's going on with Green World, having input from, say, the Green World editorial board and people generally how they interact with the site, and kind of look at more of the data points of the site. So we're not just looking at page views, we're looking at retention and how many people are coming back to the site. Because if we look at page views, it might just be, for example, Sean Berry posting an article on their Twitter account, and that's sending all the views. And that isn't organic views that the site's generating. So we need to make sure that we take a data-led approach to Green World and kind of solving the issue of what Green World is for, and that so members both know what it is and go to Green World and actually read articles, which I think we all want.
Exactly.
So stick on Green World. I've got a couple more questions on that, and then we can move on to kind of broader questions. But the first thing I wanted to kind of put to you really was, so I guess in some of what you said, you've been relatively critical of kind of like the model of Green World at the moment. I think the word journalism was used, and you've kind of alluded to it being like volume driven rather than say quality driven or whatever. But that's interesting hearing that, because as someone who spends a lot of time looking at media, producing media, engaging in green politics and so on, I've noticed a marked improvement in Green World's outputs, not just in volume, but also in terms of the way it presents itself and other things as well over the last sort of 12 to 18 months. And I wondered whether you shared that view that it has been improved, and or whether you and I guess, yeah, what you see its long-term trajectory being in relation to that.
I'll pick up on that, because maybe I was a bit harsh using the word journalism, I think you are right. The quality has gone up a lot, and I think that a lot of that is down to someone who's been on the Green World editorial board throughout that time, Fran Gator, who is incredibly talented and has done a massive amount of work on improving the output of Green World. And it really does show, it's a website that has been neglected by the party. The Green World editorial board do not get much support at all from the party. And so it's, that they're doing a really good job. And you raise this figure of £20,000 to people outside who maybe don't have any experience of running websites or generating content for publications. That sounds like a lot of money. It goes a long way, but I think what my concern is that money being spent on the right things? When we're spending that amount of money on articles that maybe get a handful of views, and most of the traffic on the site goes to a handful of articles, some of which were written quite some time ago, is it time to look at a different strategy for it? It's great to have a train with like really plush seats that people enjoy sitting in, but if it's going in the wrong direction, we need to stop the train now.
Sorry, everyone, for that pause. That was me failing to find my unmute button unfortunately. Yeah. So the final question I have for you on Green World was, a lot of people in the party look at the turnout we have in leadership elections, in Green Party executive elections like this one, engagement through conference, policy making, a whole bunch of other kind of, I guess, indicators of participation in internal party democracy, and feel that something's going wrong there. You know, when we have leadership elections with turnout sort of under 20%, we have executive elections of turnout under 10%, and think, well, why aren't we engaging the membership of the party in the kind of internal processes, especially when you compare it to other political parties that have far higher turnouts? Look at Labour Party, for example, and there's a whole range of factors as to why that is. But what do you see the role of Green World potentially playing in driving that engagement in the central party's internal processes, in the democratic structures, and engaging and mobilising the membership behind, I guess, elections and campaigns and all the stuff the party does?
Kathryn, do you want to take this one, or I can take it if you're... Okay, so I actually think that Bright Green do a really good job at engaging people with the party's internal processes, and I think Green World, I don't want Green World to compete with Bright Green. I think that would be a huge mistake. So it's a question of finding out where, you know, where is the home for Green World. Personally, I think that the lack of engagement with party processes, because people don't know what a difference their vote makes. So, you know, when it comes to leader, you know, we have a higher turnout because people can see the difference that a leader makes in the party. And people just don't understand the Green Party's internal structures. You have the Green Party Regional Council and the Green Party Executive Committee, and people don't understand the difference between those two bodies, how you get elected to them, what the roles are. And I think those two bodies don't understand their own roles sometimes, and they keep trying to steal each other's work from, and it causes, it's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So I think if party members had a better induction, if they knew what was at stake in the internal elections, then there would be a greater turnout. And I think, you know, more cohesive communications from head office as well, that would help. So yeah, I'm not sure whether it's Green World's job to increase turnout for elections. I think that's more a different role on GPEX. But I think, you know, wherever Green World can help with membership retention, I think that's where it needs to really pull its weight.
I'll just add that I think kind of the I think Green World is only kind of one factor within the party and how it communicates with members. I think there needs to be more work. It's probably more the internal comms job to do us, but kind of looking at emails so people aren't flooded with lots and lots of emails and they get lost because no one can keep track of what emails are being sent. And the other big one is green spaces, and how enabling members to actually interact with the party in a meaningful way instead of getting this page of how does this even work most of the time. So I think there needs to be a kind of a holistic look at all of those factors and how they feed into one another, rather than saying, yes, Green World is going to solve all of the party's problems.
So for viewers who are interested in some of those things that Kathryn and Rachel have just raised, we will have interviews with both the internal communications coordinator candidates coming up on YouTube very, very soon. So do keep an eye out for those. The best way to keep an eye out is by hitting that subscribe button. It means that you won't miss any of the interviews or any of our forthcoming videos. And also, because you've kind of broadened the conversation a little bit there in terms of other things the party's doing and or that you think it should be doing, and things elsewhere on the executive, it's an apt moment to then move on a little bit to talk about the wider party, because people voting in the publications coordinator election, they're not just voting for a candidate to fulfill the role of publications coordinator, they're also fulfilling, they'll also be voting for someone to fulfill a role on the executive. And you, if you're elected, will be making decisions and voting on things that are well outside the scope of your role, and they're kind of affecting this, that, and the other in relation to what the party does. So I've got a few questions I wanted to pick up on that are slightly broader. The first of those is, the party has kind of changed a lot over the last few years. It's had greater electoral success. There's been internal debates. There's a whole bunch of things that have changed in the party. So what do you think are the biggest opportunities and challenges that are facing the Green Party at the moment?
I can take this one. So I think we have a combination of a lot of exciting opportunities and a lot of disturbing challenges. So it's a really interesting time to be actively and heavily involved in the Green Party, like the two of us are. So I think we've got a huge opportunity with Labour's current direction. So there's so many young people, and so people who with socialist principles who are really turned off by the current direction. And I think it's a massive opportunity for us to pick up more activists and more members, and potentially more votes in urban areas like Sheffield and Bristol. I think the redrawing of constituency boundaries looks like it's going to give us a wee bit of a helping hand in some areas. We also have some really unpopular planning reforms coming up that the government have proposed, like, building on the green belt, expanding airports, building nuclear power stations. And I think that's something, it's a moment when we can potentially take hundreds more council seats off the Tories in their heartlands, which really, really excites me. There's nothing that makes me happier than unseating a Conservative councillor or minister. And I think the Chesham and Amersham by-election, it's a sign of things to come in the Tory heartlands. There's trouble brewing. I firmly believe that, and we desperately need to capitalise on that. And I think farmers and small business owners are beginning to wake up and realise that they've been completely sold down the river by the Tories, and those people really should find a natural home in the Green Party. And being a small business owner myself, I can attest that we've got the best policies for small businesses, and we need to be talking about them more and be proud of them. And when it comes to the challenges, we have a massive challenge when it comes to our income. And as someone whose my day job is as I look at fundraising as part of the digital strategy that I do for nonprofits. I'm worried by the high turnover of fundraising staff that we have, and we've really struggled to get over the kind of 2 million income mark. And I can see that there are things that we could be doing to really improve our fundraising. I think the party struggles to speak with one voice at election time, and I think our messaging discipline is really poor, if I'm honest, and it's because of our decentralized structure. And most people, let's face it, who are members of the Green Party, we're a little bit rebellious. We've got that kind of anti-authority streak. We don't like to be told what to say, but we just have to, because we're running out of time. And the rate that we need to grow at, it needs to grow exponentially. We need, both in terms of our finances and in terms of our electoral success, to have enough of an impact on UK government policy and spending before 2030, because that's time up, game over. So we need to gear ourselves up for getting millions more votes and raising millions more pounds.
So you've touched a little bit there on some of this stuff, but I wanted to pick it up explicitly. So in that answer, and again, Kathryn, do feel free to jump back in as well. In that answer, you've kind of described quite a diverse electoral coalition for the party. You know, you've talked about sort of younger, left inclined, sort of city dwelling young people. You talked about farmers, you talked about small business owners, you've talked about I guess people in, I guess, the South concerned with planning regulations, or people in rural areas concerned with planning regulations. That's quite a coalition to try and pull together. And the question that I wanted to put to both of you really is not necessarily just in relation to that, but into wider political strategy for the party. Where do you think the party should be positioning itself politically on the kind of political spectrum to deliver electoral success going forward?
I can take that if you don't mind, Rachel. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I've given this question a lot of thought. I'm very much a lefty. Like, I joined the party not only for its kind of climate, values on the climate, but also with social justice as well. And I would say the Green Party is definitely very firmly on the left politically. But I think that is a bit short-sighted when we're trying to get across to voters where we want to win votes. I don't mean like pulling people in from the right. I don't mean like appealing to people on the right or anything like that. I'm just saying people don't normally vote for, say, a left party or a right party, and it's quite short-sighted to put across to voters in that way. Obviously, with policy, it's very good at attracting activists, but it's not very good at attracting votes. So I say kind of the two things people vote for is they vote for other people, and they also vote for a known track record. So the party needs to be showing the good work that our councillors, activates, and our candidates for the next general elections are doing, and needs to keep platforming those voices. We need to be holding the government to account more, so we need to be, if there's a line from the government on whatever it is, we need to be there. We've seen this with mask wearing and having a very firm, the party taking a very firm stance of where we should be with wearing masks. So whatever the government is doing, we should have a response from that. For that, I've seen in Bristol, so my local party is Bristol Green Party, and I've seen in Bristol our councillor group and our candidates acted like we were the opposition in Bristol, and showing people that we're the opposition. We are now the official opposition. We got those media interviews when the paper went, when Labour gave them a line to put in the paper, the journalists would come to us next for our line on it. So we need to be that party in nationally as well. Probably not the second one, but we need to be the third choice within that, because we are now the third largest party. We can safely say that we are ahead of the Lib Dems. So we need to make sure that people see us like that as well. And I think we kind of need to stop talking about electoral packs and kind of things like that, and just get on with our values and just tell people, give people a clear decision in elections when it comes time that we are, we can be trusted, we can not only trusted in our values, but within our within kind of our proven track records as well, with making sure that we do have an answer for every question that is put forward to us. We can't just platform kind of policies that we want to put forwards and hope the media comes to us. We need to actively be proactive and make sure that we are part of the national conversation rather than a sideshow, which we are sometimes seen as, and that shouldn't be the case at all.
Thank you. So I've got a couple more serious questions before I move on to a couple of slightly more flippant ones to finish off on. The first of those is a relatively straightforward one, I mean, potentially, which is just, where do you think the Green Party is going wrong strategically at the moment? I can see both of you pausing. Which one of you wants to take this one?
I don't mind. Yep. So I think strategically at the last election, it was a really disappointing election for us, and it was so hard to watch. As an activist who just loves the Green Party, it was, you know, we've been since 2010, we've had one, you know, one member of the House of Commons, Caroline Lucas, and we were so excited about potentially getting more in Bristol and elsewhere. And we've tried, and the Isle of Wight as well, and we tried so hard for 11 years, and we you know, we're not even on an upwards trend. We're sort of bouncing around like this, and it's super hard to watch. And I do wonder, and this is one of these points where myself and Kat might disagree. I don't know whether there's whether we can truly say that if we win, if we get onto a council, or if we control the council, then we'll naturally win an MP in that area. I think that's still an unproven theory. I think where we go wrong strategically is that we're focusing too much on the you know, relying on local activists to do the work of getting MPs elected in certain constituencies, and we're losing focus on what our messaging strategy is nationally. And I think that's really, really important, because, you know, if you think about the each political leader is the embodiment of a story, and most people who don't know a lot about politics, who actually swing elections, look at the leader and they vote for the leader rather than the policy platform, like Kat was saying. And we, at the moment, we embody kind of, you know, quite a sort of, you know, sandal wearing, hummus eating kind of hippie type middle class white person, and we're not telling a cohesive story. Like, if you think about Sadiq Khan in London, everyone knows that he's the son of an immigrant bus driver, and that was the story that he was telling, you know, someone who knows the diversity of London and is working from a working class background and can speak to all of the people in London who share that background. Whereas, you know, what story are we telling? What story are our leaders telling? And I think we just don't do enough message testing. We don't, and then when we find a message that works, we don't stick to it. So I think that kind of, when we do that, like with the 2015 election, we had a much more cohesive message and people loved it. And that was our highest ever number of votes. And so if we can try and return to that kind of strategy at the national level, rather than neglecting our messaging strategy in favour of boots on the ground. And that works so well for local elections. We need to carry on doing that. We can't lose it, but we do need more of the national messaging strategy to so that when you go to the doorstep, people are not asking, what's the Green Party all about? They're feeding our lines back to us because they've heard them repeated again and again in the media and on social media and on the radio. Wherever they see the Green Party, they're hearing the same story told, and it's embodied in the leaders, and that's really where we need to get to.
So my final serious question for you before we move on to the slightly lighter ones. So you both know this, lots of our audience will know this, but some of them won't. So over the course of the last 7 or 8 weeks, there's been a number of developments happening centrally within the Green Party. I think the diplomatic way to put it is that at the moment the party is in a state of turmoil. To put it into perspective, we've had in the last 2 months, we've had 3 members of the executive resign from their posts. Now, it's not uncommon for members of the Green Party executive not to fulfill their full term, to stand down and so on. But nonetheless, it is rare to see so many resigning in such a short period of time. We've also seen Jonathan Bartley standing down as co-leader of the party. I think that takes effect in just 2 weeks' time. And Sian Berry just last week announcing that she wouldn't be seeking re-election in the by-election triggered by his resignation. So I wondered if you could reflect on the state of the party centrally, what's going on, and how you would sort of try to tackle the issues that have led to the kind of the position we're in.
So yeah, I can kind of speak on this a bit, I think. So I think what the party kind of struggles with is internal structure. There seems to be a lot of people elected to positions, they get into positions, and it's not the fault of the people elected. There's not kind of a brief of what that role is for. At the moment, for those that don't know, the role descriptions of GPECs are written by the person previously in the role. So at the end of the term, they're supposed to write their role description, and that kind of creates, if they do it at all, most of the time. So that kind of always creates some turmoil, that people don't really have a kind of a stable position in the party, even if they're elected into it. I think also kind of we need to understand who's like, with that, I think we need to understand who's accountable for what. We have lots of committees, and I don't think anyone can tell you what all of the committees do in the party. It seems quite nebulous at times. Also, kind of our processes need to be looked at. So when something happens in the party, when we need to do something in the party, we have a process. For example, with the leadership elections, we don't know how the leadership election is going to run, if we're going to have only co-leaders, if it's going to be leader tickets and co-leaders and a deputy election running at the same time. So it makes lots of uncertainty in the party, and not having that stable base for a lot of people is difficult to work through. I think for most people it's difficult to work through. So yeah, I think we need to be more stable as a party, kind of oppositions. We need more stable way of doing things. Like there's even a way to kind of with the, and that doesn't kind of stop at GPECs, that's kind of all the party as well. for instance, if I want to find out who the chair of a particular group is, there's no way of me doing that unless I ask a bunch of people that might know, and someone points me in a direction. And it just creates a lot of work initially, just trying to do anything, because you have to figure out the processes of how to put something forwards, which is quite difficult for some people to manage, and it takes a lot of spoons out of most people, I think, to navigate this system that no one knows quite how it works, but it seems to go along most of the time. So I think the party kind of needs to go through a bit of a structural change, just to make sure that it is structure. By that, I kind of don't mean like a hierarchy, but more just like so everyone just understands what each part of the party's function is. I think Rachel was saying how there's GPEX and GPRC, and most members don't understand what the different bodies are accountable for, which creates a lot of confusion for everyone involved. I don't know if the holistic review is the thing that's going to solve everything, but I think it might be one step along the way to kind of sort out some of the structural issues in the party and try to make it more stable. Really, we just need a party where people are empowered to do good rather than having a steep knowledge curve to be able to do anything. And that's in all the areas of party, not just GPEX.
Thanks for that. Just wanted to quickly follow up on that. So you talked a lot there about, I guess, internal structures that you think are kind of underpinning the problems that we're facing in terms of the as I described it, turmoil earlier. But as a lot of our viewers will be aware, and as I know that both of you will be aware, the issue that is underpinning a lot of the conversation at the moment with regards to I guess conflict in the party is around trans rights. And I wanted to touch on it briefly before we finish, because you know, you can't log on to Twitter at the moment if you follow Green Party accounts and not see this issue kind of flaring up. And I wanted to kind of ask you what you make of that, and how you would see the party moving beyond a situation where, you know, for a very, very long time, the party has had strong policies in active support of LGBTIQA plus rights. Those have been strengthened over a number of years, but only in the last sort of few years has there been a real kind of dispute amongst certain portions of the membership about those. So how do you see us moving beyond that? And the reason that I ask it is simply just because it's something that was mentioned in Sian's statement, where she said she wasn't going to be restanding. We've seen, you know, motion passed at the Young Greens convention just this weekend in relation to a spokesperson that's been announced for the Green Party and their position on trans rights, or things that they've said on trans rights, rather. And so I wondered if you would be able to reflect on how you see us moving beyond this being the issue that we're constantly revisiting as a party and that is causing tension within it.
I think as a trans person, the last thing I want to be doing in the party all the time is talking about trans rights. I joined the party to kind of fight for social and climate justice, and that's kind of what I want to be doing. And having all these fights about over trans issues is quite tiring at the time, especially for trans people in the party who at this point are very tired of having to be dragged into this all the time, not even at conferences now. It's just a constant thing. Kind of, we at last conference we passed motions supporting trans people, and kind of I think that at least should give a democratic mandate to give a through line, like, yes, the party does support trans rights, and now can we get on with other things? People keep saying that they want to debate the issue, but I think we've had so many debates, and when does that debate end? Because the party has policy on this, and I'm okay if someone wants to bring a motion to conference about trans rights, and we can debate it then. But having a debate every single day on Twitter, on Facebook, on wherever is really tiring. And I just want everyone to just stop talking about trans issues and start focusing on what the party is meant to be doing.
I do just have one follow-up, and I know that you've asked us to stop talking about trans issues, and I understand that part of this is reinforcing that. But given the context in which the election is happening in, I do think it's important to examine some of this stuff. And so I guess if you are successful in your election bid, the two of you will be sitting around a table of the executive with people who hold drastically different views, not just about trans rights, but also about what you've just mentioned there, Kathryn, about the legitimacy of there being a quote unquote debate on the issue, and I guess the framing of that debate. So, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the kind of way that you've put it is that this is an issue of trans rights. There will be people on that committee who will, irrespective of the fact that policy has passed time and time again in support of LGBTIQA+ rights, will frame it not in the context of it being about trans rights, but about it being a so-called attack on other people's rights. And I guess the question that I wanted to put to the two of you, and whoever wants to pick it up, is just how you see yourself working in that space, where whatever happens in the election, there will be people on that committee who hold the polar opposite opinion to you on this, and how you see yourself working in that space.
So I kind of have some experience working with polar opposites on committees. I won't go into too much details, but kind of what I want to be doing is so I don't believe it's the role of GPEX to be framing how debate should be working in the Green Party. I think that might be a job for GPRC, which is looking at the welfare of the party. But I think GPEX needs to be looking at running the party and getting MPs elected, really. And that's what I want us to be doing over the next few years.
So I promised I'd move on to some lighter questions, and I am going to do that now. So I have two final questions for you. Hopefully they'll be quick and light, and apologies we've run a little over time. But my first question, which I'll put to Rachel first, and then bring you in on, Kathryn, is who in the Green Party inspires you the most?
Oh boy. There's just so many people, and it's exciting about a movement that I like. This is really hard for me to choose. I think I've just got to say Aziz Minot. She did an absolutely barnstorming speech at our autumn conference last year, and she said something like, the best way to stamp out racism is to get Greens elected. And I was just like, oh yeah. It just like, oh, it spoke right to my heart. And she's such a powerful speaker, and she deserves a much higher profile within the party. and just, you know, hearing her say that there's no social justice without racial justice, and there's no economic justice without racial justice, and there's no environmental justice without racial justice, that is a message that unfortunately a lot of our members still need to hear. And I'm really, really glad she had this powerful platform to say it. And really, you know, more power to the arm of Greens of Colour. And you know, Aziz, she's doing a great job.
Yeah, Aziz is a really good pick. Yeah, and there's too many people, and every hardworking person in the party I kind of admire. But if I had to narrow it down, this might be a bit biased because I am from Bristol Green Party. There's kind of two people that stand out to me kind of early on in my time in the party. That's Cleo Lake, who was just kind of a strong voice for all kinds of social justice in the city. And her time as the Lord Mayor of Bristol as well kind of inspired me to get involved in the party and be able to be where I am now. And the other one is Carla Denyer, who her work on getting the first climate emergency motion through Bristol City Council was amazing. And it just gives me hope that we can do the work to see a greener planet in the future and where we can all live. And I really look forward to getting her elected as one of our new Green MPs in 2024.
Thank you. It's really interesting. I think every person that I've interviewed so far has given a different name, which is fascinating. We've had some that you perhaps expect and some that you perhaps wouldn't expect. And yeah, I find that question an interesting one and a nice one to end it on. But the question I am going to end it on is to bring it right back to the beginning when we were talking about Green World. And my question to you is, what is your favourite Green World article that you have ever read? I'm going to go to Kathryn on that first.
I don't know if I can think of a Green World article off the top of my head.
I'll let Rachel go first then.
Okay.
Hopefully Rachel's got one, and then we'll come back to you, Kathryn.
I think I would find it difficult to narrow it down to one, but I think the articles that celebrate councillors being elected, and particularly where we've like won control of councils, those articles I just love to read in Green World. And it's yeah, I'd like to see more of that, more successes and more inspirational stuff that really like helps stem the flow of people leaving the party. That is, you know, is good news rather than bad news, because there's too much bad news out there. So yeah, whenever I read about, you know, a councillor in, you know, in Rossendale or wherever it might be, who's got elected or achieved something for the party, that's my favourite article of the moment.
And Kathryn, have you made your call yet?
Yes, there's just too many. I think again, I'll echo Rachel, also saying good work that councillors have been doing in the party, and I think that's kind of what Green World should be. The central theme of Green World is to kind of be raising up the voice of our councillors and activists and candidates for national elections. And yeah, I want to see more of that.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Kathryn, for joining me this evening for this interview. Apologies that it's been relatively long and that it's in this unbelievably sweltering heat that we're currently experiencing in this heat wave. But thank you so much for joining me. So that's all for tonight's interview. As I said at the beginning, we will have lots more interviews to come. We also have previous interviews that you can go back and watch with other candidates, so please do check them out. But to make sure that you catch the future interviews, the best way to do it is to hit that subscribe button right now. There's no excuse. Hit it now while I'm talking at you. Hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a penny. It means you won't miss any of the videos, and it will mean that you help us out a bunch and you can stay in the loop. A few final bits of admin before I let you go. The first of them is that we've talked about a lot of things in the last hour or so, and there'll be plenty in there that you'll probably agree with, plenty that you'll probably disagree with. If you have either of those views, please do pop them in the comments down below, and let us know what you think and keep the conversation going down there. Throughout the campaign for the GPEX elections, we of course have more interviews coming up. I mentioned earlier that soon we'll have interviews with the internal communications coordinator candidates. Those should be coming up on our channel this week. We will also have a series of articles from candidates published on our website. So if you want to read more about the candidates, please do head to bright-green.org and you can find them all there. Voting, if you are a Green Party member, will be open between I think the 3rd of August and the end of August. Sometime in August. Look out for a ballot in your inbox, and make sure that you vote in these elections. And the final thing for me to say is just that Bright Green doesn't receive funding from billionaires or big business. We don't have the support of media moguls. We don't have the budget of Green World, but we do get funding from wonderful people like you. So if you do enjoy the interviews we're putting out, if you enjoy the articles on our website, if you want to see more of them, more coverage of the Green Party of England and Wales, the Scottish Greens, the Greens in Northern Ireland, the Labour movement, social movements, the rest of the left, then please do set up a regular donation of £5 a month. And you can do that either by clicking one of the links that are down below, or by heading to bright-green.org/donate. So that's it for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the interview, and I'll see you very, very soon.